So we have an opportunity here to hear from my next group of panelists. It's called Opportunity and Progress in Coordinating DoD Cyber Workforce Efforts. So we have our moderator, Mr. Mark Gorak, Principal Director for Resources and Analysis, DoD CIO. And on the panel we have Mr. CJ Maciag, Director for Cyber Science and Technology Research and Academic Outreach within the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. We have Lynne Clark, Chief of the National Security Agency, National Centers of Academic Excellence, Project Management Office. We have Patrick Johnson, Workforce Innovation Director, Office of the Deputy Chief Information Officer for Resources and Analysis, Office of the CIO, Department of Defense. Alice Smitley, DoD Cyber Service Academy Program Manager, and Mike Isnor, Cyber Workforce Development Branch Chief, Workforce Innovation Directorate, Office of the Chief Information Officer, DoD Cyber. I was going to say Cyber Institute, but so let's welcome them to the stage, and I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Mark.
All right, good afternoon. So first session after lunch, so this should be good. Thanks for inviting us to HammerCon. This is my first convention, so I'm kind of honored to be here, and I'm honored to host this very prestigious panel today. So I'm Mark Gorak. I'm Principal Director for Resources Analysis and DoD CIO. I have 5 directorates. This is one of them, is the Workforce Innovation Directorate, led here by Patrick. I want to thank CJ for putting out the article on the workforce and what we're doing in the workforce. So I'm hoping we educate you and inform you from a DoD perspective of how we're trying to get after this challenge. I think it's a really great challenge. I think it's a national challenge, right? Cyber workforce. It's also nonpartisan, so everybody should be behind this, right? So is everybody, just at a quick, looking across the audience, in whatever organization you work for, are you 100% manned? Anybody? Is anybody short any cyber talent? A couple, I guess only. Okay, how about this? Is anybody short good cyber talent? High quality, okay? We all can use more of that, right? So that's kind of what we're after in the DoD CIO, of how we can produce this talent, how we can retain it, and then how we can share it nationally. So that's kind of our theme behind this. So again, I love the theme of this HammerCon is workforce. That's great. That's right up our alley. In the past year, the DoD CIO has rolled out the Cyber Workforce Strategy Implementation Plan and the Cyber Workforce Strategy. If you haven't seen those, check out our website, dodemergingtech.com. There's my plug. In our implementation plan, we actually were bold. We took 38 objectives. I didn't kill one of them. I said, you have a good idea, we're going to try it. And then we're going to use data to actually measure it. So 38 initiatives, 22 objectives we're trying to achieve. All I can really say is in the past decade, our problem has gotten worse, not better, and we have to find innovative solutions to get after it. And that starts with producing the next generation of the cyber workforce. Okay, a part of the 38 initiatives, we have one of them called the Cyber Academic Engagement Office. We just produced a paper on that for the Hill. You can read more about that. The FY24 NDAA challenged the DoD to stand up this office. I can say everybody on this panel is part of that office. So we're working through that. We're looking to be IOC sometime this year. Bottom line, without manpower, there is no mission. Without a skilled and ready cyber workforce, our mission to protect and defend the nation and the cyber domain is compromised. Our adversaries are already competing with us, and you all know that. Investing in our future is what we plan to do by establishing the Cyber Academic Engagement Office. And on behalf of the Department of Defense and the CIO, I look forward to working with academia stakeholders and partners with industry to create that next generation of workforce. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to the panel here. We'll start with Patrick.
Hey, good afternoon. For those who are going back to your days in uniform in the class, did everybody stand up, sit down, stand up, make sure you're awake? Hopefully we don't have to do that today. I want to just kind of take a little different track as I lay out the 4 basic buckets we're working with inside this strategy. So strategies are great. Without implementation and without constant measurements, it's nothing more than a book that sits on a shelf and collects dust until the next group comes in and says, we need a strategy. The reality of it is, if we can go back 15 years, let's just stop there. I could go back 20. Think about where we were 15 years ago. Think about where we are now. Some things have progressed in terms of technology and how we're training, but the underlying challenge to our workforce has not. For those that have been in this game that long, you can say, really, it's not gotten better. In fact, we seem to be sliding back even further. That means we have to do something different. So part of our strategy and our focus in what my directorate does is in 4 buckets. And one of those is the identification of the workforce. And we'll talk about work roles. That's going to be Matt's job as he lays that out, how that aligns for those that are in the mission force, your JQRs, how we do that, how we make that uniform, and then how we manage the workforce, incentivize the workforce using that versus the traditional construct. The second piece of that then is qualifications. How do we qualify the workforce? And really, when you look at the talent pipeline coming in, you've got trained talent coming in, you have untrained talent coming in. We need multiple pipelines of that. What can we do for the trained pipeline to make them more mission ready from day one? They will never be complete. Nobody comes in and sits down on your networks day one and gets the keys to the kingdom. Everybody has to go through residential or organizational training specific to that organization. But if I can get that person from a college, one of our senior military colleges, and because they went through a certain curriculum to a certain standard, they are more ready than a student that did not go through that. That saves you time, it saves you money, and it puts somebody on operations much faster. So that's part of the goal. Then the next piece of that is, how do I develop this talent pipeline? So I want to qualify it, align that. There's multiple ways we're going about it, but right now we're focusing on the academic side of that, even though we have not limited ourselves to that, because there's training, certifications, certs, and then there's education. So when I use the military training and commercial training, that's great. I want my certs and certification. We changed that and opened the aperture on that because, one, those are expensive, and we needed to find a different way to approach this. So if I have somebody coming out with a master's degree in computer science, do I really need to send them back to get a certification? It's like, hey, I have a master's, but I need you to go back and take your GED. That doesn't make any sense. So this is part of that plan. And if you're looking at it right now and you're saying you're not moving fast enough, I agree. We're not. But we are leaning into it as fast and hard as we can because change is hard. Anytime you try to change something in your organization, you receive resistance. And we are getting resistance, but it's being overcome, and we're still driving through on that. So one of those things that Mark mentioned earlier was this academic engagement office. Now, the department didn't necessarily think this up. Congress said, I need you to be more focused because of all the money that goes into the department for scholarships, especially in the cyber arena. Show me a return on investment. That's what this office is really about. Harmonizing all of these things. That's why we have somebody from R&E, NSA, pulling these things together so we can better harmonize and get a better return on our investment. More importantly, we're providing data back to Congress and our decision makers. So when we do move forward in the budget process and ask for more, or we say we need to place more, in your organizations, think about it. For those in NSA, you have a pretty robust ingestion point. Outside of NSA, you don't have a lot of interns necessarily, or entry-level or developmental positions. That's a big deal because these graduates, if we're going to start pushing more of them out, we've got to have a place to put them. I can't turn out graduates and not have them have a job. There are programs out there where the government will train you. You don't necessarily have to arrive and work for a government institution. DOD cannot afford that luxury. Right? We need to place them into our system, and they need to produce for us. So that's part of this mission from the office. And then the last piece is the personnel side of it, how we manage and ingest talent through that. That is a whole other challenge. We're addressing that with cyber accepted service. Right now, if I'm grading cyber accepted service across the department, we get a C, all right? Because there are a lot of things that need to be improved and worked on. But The CIO doesn't manage that in a vacuum by itself. It's managed with P&R and your human capital folks. And that is a different challenge altogether, getting them to change the way they do business. So these are all the things my office focus on in these buckets, and I have various leaders that push on this to constantly make change. Matt's one of those, but I think what we'll do from here, that's my pitch for right now. I'm going to hand it over to CJ.
Yeah, maybe.
You want to hand it to Matt?
Yeah, we made the executive decision.
Yes, I think I'm next.
Push the button.
Push and hold.
There you go. Can you hear me now? Yeah. All right. I think I'm next. So my name is Matt Isnor. I work in the WID for Mr. Johnson and Mr. Gorak. It's kind of exciting times right now inside of the workforce area. My branch, we focus on the cyber workforce development. So we really focus on the various products. I'll touch on two of them right now. That if you're not familiar with them, the DCWF, the DoD Cyber Workforce Framework. What that is, really exciting times is in the avenue where we're doing a refresh. We're updating the various work roles, the tasks, the knowledge and skills inside of the IT and cybersecurity elements. But we're also expanding. Basically, the DCWF ultimately kind of codifies the capabilities and requirements of what the work roles in the environment ultimately do. It gives us a lot of detail, and one of the big things that we ultimately do is tie those tasks and knowledge and skills to the overarching operational mission. We want to make sure that there's connective tissue all the way up to the top so that we don't have any gaps. So our workforce from the individual basis is really tying to those and making sure that everything is covered. That we're defending networks, that we're creating infrastructure, that we're doing operations, and everyone has kind of a role inside of the environment. So that's ultimately what the DCWF ultimately does. And because of the usefulness of what the framework did, we started expanding into other areas. Similar functional areas that have a lot of common ties. Our AI workforce, our machine learning, data science, and ultimately our software engineering. Because from a workforce, Patrick kind of alluded to, or Mr. Gorak kind of alluded to, is we don't have enough talent. We don't have enough good talent. But all the talent comes from the same basis. They all come up from academic programs, from educational programs, certifications, training, those types of things. So we have to cultivate that. We have to start bringing those individuals through and communicating what the requirements for the department is. So that really is kind of the blueprint of what the DCWF does. It helps kind of the department go out and start communicating those areas of requirements. What are our capabilities? What are our areas that we need to focus on? We start identifying work roles of critical need. Where we see the gaps, it is a great recruitment and retention strategy. You can start really specializing into those areas. Gives you a lot more granularity than our traditional pathways of hiring. I don't want to actually highlight any of those, but we can start actually finding the talent in the environment. We can start saying the various skill sets that we want, the various areas that we want to focus on, and start really recruiting that from a department level basis. So the DCWF is one of them that I kind of wanted to touch on. That kind of is the identification. What does our workforce look like? What are the requirements? The next evolution, the department took it a step further. We started working on qualifying. This is not anything new for the department. Everyone in the environment, anybody in operations knows we qualify our workforce. You don't let anybody in the front door of your workforce, give them the keys to the kingdom and start letting them do patching or building infrastructures. You always qualify them. What we wanted to do from the department is standardize that. We wanted to make sure everyone is doing the same pathway, making sure we're giving the best mechanisms and tools to our operational entities to make sure that those are the best quality individuals coming through. So 8140, it basically replaced the 8570. If everyone's not familiar with that, that's the old information assurance workforce. We've obviously broadened the scope of that. We've got much bigger information assurance, now cybersecurity, but we have a lot more elements inside of the framework. So that's where we wanted to go from the department to make sure that we qualify them. We start working in that arena and making sure that we give the best quality to the gaining organizations. That's the baseline foundations. We don't stop there. We make sure that we work with our operational organizations to get that residential calls as well. We start building those, having those building blocks inside of the framework to start really building careers inside of the department. Inside of the operations, you can say Cyber Command, DISA, any of those service cyber components, those types of things, to make sure that we're really codifying what that workforce and what their capabilities are. And then we can start building career pathways from that. We can start making sure people aren't siloed. There's a lot of connective tissue in those work roles that people have kind of overlap. As I mentioned, the talent comes from the same basis, so they have a lot of skills. They don't really know what they don't know until they get into the job. So they might not be best suited for that job. We want to be able to create pathways so that they can kind of spread their wings and start maneuvering through the department so we can try to retain them. So that's kind of the big two programs. There's a lot going inside of the workforce arena from these elements, and obviously we will take questions on them, but those are the ones that I wanted to highlight because it's a lot of exciting times. We're in the middle of implementation of those programs right now, so we're moving forward. So that's all I got. Over to Lynn.
Okay, I'm next. Lynne Clark, National Security Agency, the CAE Program Manager. So the couple things I think I'd like this audience to know about CAEs is that NSA manages the program. They're colleges from and community colleges, universities from all over the country. We don't focus on one agency in terms of who wants what for students. The reality is that whether you're talking about the workforce in DoD terms or you're talking about the workforce in other government terms, slight variations from my level, not huge differences where we have to have two separate programs to run that. The issue that's common across the board is that everybody needs more cyber workforce, and we need competent students graduating from college programs or any other program that they're in, but we've shifted our focus from grade point averages to competency and demonstrations of competency. Now, how many of you are either in academia or have worked in academia? Okay. I thought the federal government was sluggish in terms of responding to problems. Academia's got us beat by the mile, right? So you can't just go out to schools and say, okay, next cycle in 3 months, we're going to do it this way. You have to give them a little piece at a time, and you have to collaborate. You can't dictate. As soon as you start dictating, they start shutting down and walking away. So we have been, for the last 4 years, collaborating with our schools to define what competency looks like in an academic environment, how you develop competency in an academic environment, how you document it for both the student and for the school to our office that they're doing what we ask them to do. And that's been a surprisingly complicated process, but we're there. Our objective is that when a student graduates from a CAE program, that student will not only know what it means to be a cyber professional, and I will challenge you to do this as an aside. Next time you're around a job fair, pick a random student walking down the hall looking for a job and ask him what kind of job he wants, or her, okay? If they can tell you what their passion is, what they're educated and trained to do, please call me, because I want to know what school they were at, okay? I have yet to find a student who didn't look at me with a dumbfounded expression, I want to work in cybersecurity. Duh, I'm at a cybersecurity job fair. Yeah, but what do you want to do? Do you want to be a programmer? Do you want to work on the tech end? Do you want to do cyber psychology? Do you want to do threat analysis? And they'll sit there and go, yeah. Okay? So our objective is that when they leave, number one, as they start their program, they know what program they're in. This program will prepare you to do these things. It will not prepare you to do these things, okay? And that when they graduate and they come for a job interview, they can sit down and talk to the interviewer in terms of what they can do to help them do the job that they're looking to do, right? Now, you would think that that was a simple proposition, but no, it is not. So that's one of our objectives, is that we develop competency, consciously and deliberately develop competency as part of an academic program. Now, many of you who've worked with big universities are sitting there, and the dialogue in your head is, yes, but I'm a university. I teach, I don't train. Okay? So that was one of the big obstacles that we had to get over to get everybody on board with this. And there are still some out there. But the reality is that I believe as we begin to do this and we gather energy and we're running down the road with this, the ones that are doing what we ask them to do are going to be successful because they're going to place students. Students are going to know that program is successful. They're going to go to that program, and the ones that are dragging their feet are going to be at the end of the line, right? So what I'm interested in is that when our students graduate, they're prepared and meet the requirements for the job that they have to go to. The other thing that we're doing in terms of what Patrick said about certs is that the schools, community colleges are really good at that. Universities aren't so much. But you might be surprised at how open many of the universities are to integrating certificates into their academic programs, because they know that it's an advantage to their graduates when they get into the workforce. Now, most certificates are still paper tests. There's not, I don't know what correlation there is between saying I have a certificate and I can do the job, but industry recognizes the certificates, and I think that's something we have to use. It's a tool, right? We're graduating from programs that we've looked at in detail. This number sounds low, around 29,000 students a year, okay? Those are from the one program path that the university or the community college brought to us. We looked at and said, you meet our requirements, okay? Any of those schools might have 4 or 5 other paths. So about 6 months ago, there was a study looking at our program, and the published numbers were that the schools in the CAE program are producing close to half of the cybersecurity graduates in the nation. I think that number's a little high, but I know that we are probably, the number that we estimated, if you look at all of the programs at our schools, is closer to 130,000. So we're putting out a lot of students every year. The last problem that I want to make a comment about, and then I'll give CJ or Alice anyway. One of the things employers need to do is look at entry-level jobs, okay? One of the problems we're running into is that the line of graduates is starting, we have a clog in the pipeline, because if you look at entry-level requirements, some of them say you have to have a master's degree with 5 years of experience and a CISSP. I just graduated last year. How is that an entry-level job? Right? So we really need to look at what entry-level means. We need to look at how we can help our students leave school with work experience. And so when we invest in our grants, we're investing in programs that not only serve the nation, but allow our students to develop competency. So our students are manning SOCs for the states. Our students are working in clinics that help small businesses and small communities with cybersecurity, but the students are getting experience working in a job, and so on. So the programs that we're creating in that type are two-purposed. One is to serve the nation and help solve a problem, but the second one is to give our students work experience so that they know what it means to work, what they like and what they don't like, what they're good at and what they're not, and so that they can put on their resume, I worked in cybersecurity for 2 years, 1 year. I did this job, and they can talk about what their skills are when they go into interview.
Okay, so I'm next. I'm Alice Smitley. I am the DoD Cyber Service Academy Program Director. That is a very new name. We used to be the DoD Cyber Scholarship Program, and we used to be the DoD Information Assurance Scholarship Program. We've been around for about 23 years. And we've placed over probably close to about 900 students in the Department of Defense. So we are a scholarship program, and we offer full ride scholarships to students who are at a designated National Center of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, Lynne's program. And it's a full ride scholarship, and they can receive up to 5 years of support. So we technically could have a student complete their undergraduate and get that master's degree all under the scholarship program. When they accept the scholarship, they agree that they will work for the Department of Defense 1 year for every year of funding that they receive. Now, when I say full ride, I mean full ride. So we pay full tuition. They get a book supply stipend, or allowance, I should say. We give them a one-time technology fee so they can buy a laptop, a desktop, or build their own. We give them a living allowance or stipend. We just raised it, and I haven't committed the amounts to memory. $29,000 for undergrads, $34,000 for graduate students. And that's on top of the tuition. So we are getting ready to award our scholarships this year. I have some students who are getting about $56,000 this year on up to about, I think the biggest I have is $112,000. But the average cost of one scholarship is about $70,000. So you think about, we hear in the news students are struggling with paying their student loan debt, things like that. Here's an excellent way to get students into the department, into those positions, and they come out and they're not owing anything on their student loan. Maybe the first 2 years, it just all depends. So students apply through our online application portal. It will open on the 1st of November, 2024. They have to be U.S. citizens, 18 years of age or older. And they go into that application. There's some more things they have to fill out. We want to know about the student. We want to know what they're doing, what's their likes, what's their dislikes. Do they speak any spoken language, any programming languages are they familiar with? We're adding a new section this year where it is competitions. Tell us what competitions you've participated in. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just tell us, we want to know. So the agencies want to know. Once the student submits that application, it goes to their institution. The institution will review the application, look at the student, and then nominate that student. We had over 570 students this year apply for the scholarship program. We had about 4,000 go in and create an account. Now, I don't know why the other 3,500 didn't apply. It just, we don't have those metrics, but our website is getting a lot of traffic and students are very interested. Now, after the student or the institution nominates the student, those students get released to any DoD agency who wants to place these students. So if you're an agency and you're looking for cyber talent, call me, because I got it. The agency will look at the student and they will make the selection based on their mission and needs. I'm not sitting in an office saying, oh, so-and-so's getting that student. I don't like them today, so they're not getting any. No, the agencies are picking for their mission. So somebody from NSA is looking at their computer scientists, those super geeky, and I say that lovingly, but those super geeky technical folks that maybe DISA doesn't need. They're looking for policy folks or things like that. So the agencies are really able to go in, sort that application list, and find the people that they need. And then once an agency says, yes, we're going to hire them, the student gets an offer letter and they get a scholarship. the student will start their scholarship this fall. Next summer, they will have an internship. The program pays for that internship. We will transfer the money to that agency and pay that summer salary. You tell us how much it's going to cost. We will pay that. So it's kind of like free labor. You just have to do the clearance and the placing. And then once that student graduates, they come to you for the same number of years that they received the scholarship. I have one individual who's at Nywick Atlantic in Charleston. He is my poster child, and I always tell him that, and he laughs. He was selected around 2004. He is still at the agency. He's at the, I believe, almost at the SES level, and he is now picking students from this program for his organization. So we do have those success stories of individuals staying with the department. We do have a second scholarship program that's for current DoD civilians and active duty military members. We're still developing that, but right now we have a 2-year community college program where if we have somebody who may not be in a cyber position right now, but would like to transition, and management and leadership says, yes, that person can do the job, we can get them into a 2-year program and get them that cyber degree that will allow them to move into that. We are also trying to revamp our partnership program with the National Defense University's College for Information and Cyberspace, where the student attends about a 14-week session there, and then they take those credits and transfer it into a partner program at one of our national centers of academic excellence. That is tuition, books, and fees. You don't get a stipend because you're getting your salary. So, and then we do some small things, capacity building grants for our institutions, and those are small projects, outreach to academia, and then outreach to DoD. Sometimes our DoD agencies are working with colleges and universities on unclassified research projects, and they may just not have the money to finish that out. So the institution doing the research for that agency can come in and request that small amount of money and then work on that project. And then our outreach to academia could be anything from summer camps to outreach to certain communities, Gold Star families, any kind of Wounded Warrior projects, all kinds of stuff. So I think that's, oh, one more thing. I had to look at CJ to remember this. So for our recruitment students, we are trying to give them some additional opportunities. So we're trying to figure out how we can partner with Viceroy and create that pipeline for the students, as well as there is a program out there called Pathfinder. We are working with them to get some of the students some additional experience so that when they come in the door, they've got that baseline and they can hit the ground running. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is CJ Maciag with USD-RNE. And no, I don't have stage fright. That's not the reason I passed the mic past me a number of times. But it was really because everyone else on here on the stage kind of set up the framework for why we believe we need a program like Viceroy and why we are able to succeed, because we are standing on the shoulders of greatness of the programs that have preceded us, the 450-plus schools that Lynne has put together, the CYSP, now the CSA, that Alice has put together, the SMART Scholarship Program, so many other programs that are out there. What makes Viceroy different is it is bringing a mission focus and experiential learning to activate many of the academic standards that Lynne has, for example, implemented within her NCAE program. So when we started this program, in 2019, it was authorized by then the NDAA. We got some funding, and we were told, hey, go increase the number of ROTC and civilians who are going to be entering the DoD workforce, to make sure they have those critical cyber skills they need in strategic foreign languages, additionally, cryptography, and data science. We said, wow, well, gee, Lynne's already doing a great job. How can we do a better job than what she's doing right now, right? So I got the opportunity to work with two people, Susan Hamilton and, Sharon Hamilton, pardon me, and Dan Ragsdale, or Rags, right, who really pushed me in the direction of saying, hey, look, the problem is really how to get the students excited about the work that they're working on so that they want to learn more and have that engage them and pull them through their academic career. And I thought a little bit about my own experience. I did work 20 years concurrently in academia as well as my 35 years in Department of Defense. And I recall talking with students. I remember being a student. I remember sitting in classes, being told about the students to the left and the right that are no longer going to be in the program. They weren't dummies. That's not why they're not going to be there. They didn't know why they're going to be there. To Lynne's point, I want to be in cybersecurity. Why? I was told it was a good thing to do. I don't know why I'm there, though, right? So what we're doing with Viceroy is we are bringing an experiential focus to the education they receive at the schools right on the ground floor, helping the instructors, first of all, understand what are the DoD and national security problem sets that are facing us today and how to light up the coursework, the certificates, and the certifications in that context so students have an understanding about what is that future career they could be pursuing, and therefore having that guide them in terms of maybe the internship opportunities they pursue, and most likely then entering into a DoD workforce where they want to stay. So the thing is, I as an employer within Department of Defense, I recognize that I would get a lot of interns through my door, but I wouldn't know, I wouldn't know if they were going to stay because I don't know why they chose me, What I'd like to do, what I wanted to do in the Viceroy program is I wanted to help make that choice to be with me more deliberate and not opportunistic or happenstantial, right? So I've said a few things here. Now let me tell you what Viceroy does. So what Viceroy does is it's, first of all, it essentially awards capacity building it's a capacity building contract to a set of institutions, one of which has to be an NCAE school, another one or more of them has to be an R1, right? And ideally, one of them is an HBCU or an MSI organization. The idea here is to enhance by pulling a pipeline of students who are interested in cyber, were maybe not traditionally enticing, pipelining them sometimes as early as high school through dual enrollment, working with the schools to build new courses or adapt current courses and programs of study to focus on national security problems, incentivize the schools who are engaging in DoD or federally funded research to carve out literature searches and other interesting things for undergrad students to participate and get involved in the problem. Conduct seminars where folks from who have established cyber careers, who look like the students who are in the classroom, to come in and talk to the students about what they do to help answer some of the questions like Lynne's students say they have. We have competitions. They're not the typical points-based capture the flag. They're mission-focused. We have, and then we work with the schools also where they have coursework that aligns with certifications, industry-accepted certifications. We incentivize the students financially to take the course and then to complete the certification, and we reimburse them or give them some sort of stipend for that. So that they have not only what the academics say they know, but what industry believes they know as well through some standardized attestation. So that's a large part of what we do in Viceroy. We have 13 virtual institutes that are composed of 44 schools nationwide. There are 900 students currently in the program. We're graduating about 200 students per year. But if you talk to those in DoD, they will say, well, there's like 30,000 or so open cyber positions. And we didn't even talk about the close cousin of cyber, Spectrum. I'm an electrical engineer. My very first assignment was cybersecurity, and I never looked back from there, right? But RF and propagation, how have we changed so much in the last 40 years, right? Wired internet, things like that. Now everything's wireless, 5G. They're inextricably linked, right? So we have to have curriculums that bring those things together. So this is where we work with the schools too. But you can build that talent pathway, but now comes the problem is you don't want to be pushing on a rope flooding the market with students who don't know where to go. So setting up the internship matchmaking place is very, very important. And we found that this, at least when we started Viceroy, it was things like the talent marketplace were not and maybe still not well known to academia to point their students in that direction. And what Pat and I sometimes talk about is like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we just a one-stop shop that not only the students applying this place, but they do these little drop downs to say, I want to work in this geographic region, I want to work for this kind of employer, and I want to do this kind of thing. And bing, it tells them, well, you need to apply for this. This scholarship thing here applies to you and so forth. And this is the process for doing it. Love to have that. Until we get there, what we're doing with Viceroy is we've established an internship program, matchmaking program for our students to help them match their skills with what the employers want and ideally kind of match up where the student wants to go as well. The idea is that if I have a student who's doing something they're interested in doing, where they want to do it, the effort that the employer's putting in to help orient that student and mentor them is well served by the fact that the student wants to eventually work for that organization. My outreach person, who is actually coming down the stairs right here, Ms. Jennifer McCullough, if any of you are interested, our DoD employers here are interested in our Viceroy students, please see her at the Viceroy booth or here afterwards. We have two internship programs. One is known as MAVEN. It's our Rising Sophomores program. I call it the Cyber and Spectrum Boot Camp for those students who have a lot of aptitude, are recommended by their instructors at schools, that they have a lot of promise, drive, and so forth. They learn leadership, communications, teamwork, citizenship, how to perform oral and written communications, write an IEEE style paper. They compete in a military style capstone exercise. I don't know if any of you here have known of Concord Dawn, show of hands. No, the unit cyber warfare training for the Air Force. We adapt that for our first year students, and many of them do very well at that, right? So we're trying to bring realistic exercises to them, and our Mavens who complete this 8-week course and are learning about cyber and spectrum as well, are learning why they're in the Department of Defense, understanding why it's a noble mission. They understand where the opportunities are. It drives them throughout the rest of their time in school. Although the intention is to have them work for the Department of Defense, some of them go work for the Defense Industrial Base. Some of them start their own companies. I've got 2 students who have received Defense Innovation Unit money to solve cyber problems as a result. So I could keep going on. I won't, but that's what's behind Viceroy. If you're interested in more information afterwards, let me know. And as Mr. Gorak mentioned earlier, that article here is in the Cyber Magazine. Come to the Viceroy booth to get one of these.
All right, thank you, panel. Thank them real quick. So, to me, the most interesting part of a panel is not only listening to everything that we have going on, which is actually just a small part, but it's your opportunity to ask specific questions if you have them. So we have about 15 more minutes. If you have specific questions, go ahead and ask, and I'll try to read.
For anyone on the panel, if you were to talk to a student here and they ask you, what's a better return on my investment for the money? I want to get into the defense industrial base. I want to start like helping out with the mission of our nation. Do I go like try to get some certs and get in, or do I try to get an actual degree and get in based on, you know, currently how people work? What would you tell that, you know, young 18-year-old person?
I'll take a. Have to use the mic. I'll take a stab at that. Okay. So the question was, if we were approached by a student and are asking advice, what's the best way to get into this field? And we say cyber. Cyber for me is pretty broad and encompassing. It includes AI, software, data. There's a spectrum element to that. Where would I start? Should I get a degree, or should I do the certifications and start the training? There's 2 pathways, and training teaches you what to do. But if you want to be in this for the long term, you're going to have to touch the education piece, because that teaches you how to think. When we talk about right now what our threat environment looks like, what our attack surfaces are, what will they look like in 5 years? What will they look like in 3 years? We don't know, Not really. Anybody that tells you, I know what we're going to be doing 10 years from now, right? They're not on it. They're not right. So if I'm building a workforce or trying to build a career, I need somebody that is agile and can respond, and they need to be able to problem solve and think. All right? And that is where the education process comes in. It teaches you how to approach these problems in this arena. So my advice, if they've got a choice and are looking at it, you need money now. Education route is not, unless you get a full ride, not the best way. But in the long term, it's going to be the best avenue for you to go through. Because you will be better prepared for the changes that are rapidly hitting as they come. Because as an employer, when I look at somebody, I really don't care all about how much you know on certain things. I'm more interested in how do you respond to problems, how do you solve those problems, and attack those non-standard problem sets, right? That is of great interest to me because that's the world I live in every day. I need to be able to give you things, and I'll look at you and say, need you to tackle this, and you're going, how do I do that? That's why I'm giving it to you, because I have no idea, all right? There has to be a starting point. You have to know how to kind of look at that and say, okay, I'm going to start eating this elephant one bite at a time, and this is the way I'm going to go about doing it. And you need a background for that.
And I just wanted to also kind of throw in there, everything Patrick said, completely true, but also go a step further. Hands-on stuff. Go to competitions, go to challenges, go to as many exercises, do internships, get all that actual hands-on keyboard stuff, because that's really a lot of what the operational people are looking for. What have you done? How do you actually look at critical thinking? How do you actually do exercises? How do you relate it all? Because that's going to best prepare you for what you're going to do in actual mission.
Let me just add one more thing. And when you're putting together a resume, a lot of students like to put down, hey, I've taken this course, and this course. Turn it around. Think about what problems did you solve in each one of those courses. Explain that, because that explains to employers the value of what you can solve, what you can do, what you can accomplish.
Good major for Lieutenant Commander there.
My question kind of gets to the reserve and guard as potential opportunity for software opportunities. It seems oftentimes we get lumped in with kind of more sort of the traditional civilian route when we're getting scholarships, like these programs as well. But I think there's an opportunity potentially, since reservists are often juggling a couple extra balls than a traditional civilian in terms of family life, potentially a civilian employer so that they can maintain a livable wage, and then they have potentially school on top of that and the reserve unit. It seems like sometimes reservists are struggling to get the educational piece solved while they're trying to solve the these challenges. And so my question is, to what degree, it's trying to be a little bit of a naive question, because I've done a little bit of research on this, but not too much. What potential opportunities are there for targeting workforce development or reservists and guardsmen who traditionally are going to be in the game for a long time because they're already very certain to serve?
So I can take it. Did everybody hear that question? Okay. So just to quickly repeat it, basically, I'm going to boil it down. What opportunities are there for reservists and National Guardsmen? So under the Cyber Service Academy, we do allow reservists and National Guard members to apply for what we call the recruitment scholarship.Ose individuals can then, we're going to push this a little bit more, elect to do their service obligation with their guard unit or their reserve unit. So there is that opportunity. They can maintain that normal lifestyle that they're accustomed to, but then they give back their service obligation through their service. And that would help them, be able to maintain their family life and all that. We're paying for the scholarship, they get all that money, and then they come and do their service obligation.
Along those lines, it seems like each component or agency, or even either military members, active component, reserve component, civilian industry, they're all sort of poaching from each other, right? One creates capacity, and then they create a problem for retention, and then an exit ramp that then can't become a virtuous circle and help each other, right?
Got an answer for that. All right. So bottom line, the question is very simple. All right. When you look at this sphere, we have contractors and industry operating, we have military, and then we have a civilian workforce all under the government. And we're all pulling from the same pool, and it's a snake eating its tail, literally. So if we make an adjustment over here, suddenly people flow into industry. If we make an adjustment over here, they flow out, and we can't get the contract support we need. Although that doesn't seem to be the case. It seems that more often than not, industry benefits from what we're doing on the military side and the civilian side in terms of flowing out. So the question then becomes, how do we do it? Well, first, we have to change the way we think, and we're unlikely going to get industry to change the way it thinks because they're driven by profit. Bottom line, I respect that. On the government side of the house, we're driven by mission. What we have to do and look at this is we have to begin to build our own bench. Flip that paradigm where we flood the supply and flip on the demand signal. So right now, demand outstrips supply. So we need to start building our bench, and that means looking at an organization and saying 25%, and this I think is a little small, needs to be entry-level developmental positions. So I am growing people in the pipeline. Ideally, just like we do for the military, I need to be pulling in, right, for every one employee I expect to stay, I need to be ingesting about 5 more at that entry-level developmental position because I know in this field they're going to tread out opportunities, especially if I'm pulling in talented folks, right? So we have to kind of look at how we do that. And then more importantly, the artificial barriers between why can't you go to industry and come back? Why can't you go out to the academic and come back? Because there's these barriers of military service. Nope, you can't do that. That's against the law. But there's, exactly. So we are attacking that and looking at it. Changing law is not impossible, but it does take time and it's hard. So right now, if you're going to get in on legislation, you're 2 years out from anything. So we're looking at those things. And remember, the people sitting here, we're on the execution point, but the people who control the levers from a policy perspective don't always agree, right? That the first place they go is, no, that's in the ballpark of hard. It violates all these things. We don't want to go there. Changing that mindset. Yeah, absolutely, we do want to go there. We're not saying change everything today, but let's change one thing. That made it better. Now, what do we change the next thing? So permeability, the ability to move back and forth is good, and then flipping our demand. So it's a cultural change in doing it. There's a lot that goes on that. Okay.
As I'm sitting here listening to the workforce discussion, the piece that's triggered in my head was you're helping both the universities and education teams build up the workforce. Is there a mechanism that you guys are using today to inform the acquisition side of the house what needs to go into the requirement specs for the people that they're asking for? Because from the industry side, we constantly get these wish lists. I'll give you an example. There's a contract that's out right now that requires a bachelor's degree in SCI clearance and Security Plus to $10 billion platform on the mission critical training side of the side. I don't think there's anybody with those criteria that's going to be able to touch that market and that are able to do a decent job with it. How can we influence back into that self-aiding state that you mentioned to get it right across the board so that we can provide the right services at the right time?
So on the acquisition side, I think, Matt, you're best positioned to talk about our push to change things in the DFAR.
Yes, the DFAR. So right now we're kind of cart before the horse. As we develop the 8140 requirements, the DCWF requirements, that kind of outlines what the workforce ultimately does, kind of alluding to that. DFARS takes time to update. It's going to take us another 12 months to go through that and actually be able to articulate the language for the cyber workforce. From there, it'll develop LCATs. So you'll get more qualified individuals. Right now, you have to put into contracts the old way of doing business. Individuals where you actually align to an IAT, IEM, level 1, 2, you had a cert, you have a bachelor's degree. What we're doing with 8140 is opening the aperture. We're getting more individuals in, trying to find those individuals that qualify in their parents' basement. There's ways to get after it, but the department takes forever to do anything. So we, we'll get there, but once we get the DFARS updated, it'll happen.
Yeah, we have like a minute and a half, so we'll take one more question, and I think actually his hand was up first over here.
Specific question. So historically, being granted TSSCI is kind of seen as a holy grail for creating opportunities, but more and more work lately, it seems like detriment to those agencies and able to get outside of town because many people are in the workforce, they want their smartphones on them, they telework opportunities going to the step every day, and things of that nature. So are things being thought of in those terms, like how can we address the situation?
Yes, I'll just take that one here. So one of our initiatives is the hybrid workforce and how we address that. The technology exists to be able to do these things. The question is the policy behind it, and then the safeguards to address the risk. So we're looking into that more. By the way, the question is basically on clearances. If you're working for the IC, you have to have a very high level of clearance, TSSCI with poly, and that prohibits a lot of the new talent coming in because A, they don't have it, and B, it takes a long time to get, and C, they don't want to work in person. They want to work remotely or have more flexibility. So we're working through that challenge. It is a challenge. However, this goes in waves, right? 2 years ago, industry and the rest of the world was almost fully remote. That trend is reversing at a rapid rate today. If you're looking across industry right now, those trends are changing. So they're more and more in the office. So, but I still believe we have to provide a flexible workforce. I call it the hybrid, and that's a supervisor decision and an individual decision. And we're working through providing those opportunities, but we're not there yet. All right, that's all the time we have. I really appreciate everybody's time and attention today. Thank you to my esteemed panel. Thank you, everybody.